Fine. Thanks for joining us on our live stream tonight. Tonight's the first nighttime podium session of the year, which is awesome. So we kick off tonight and then we continue through to the end of March with our podium performance sessions. So tonight's topic came from a coach and I got interested in it, which is why we asked you guys to come. So tonight's topic of NCAA pathway versus the Canadian University Sport pathway. And we've heard from a lot of coaches that that's a hard decision to make for the athlete, for the parent, and that it's normally the coach that's the expert or the one guiding the athlete towards that. So we thought it'd be interesting, especially for a lot of our new coaches coming up who maybe haven't had to deal with that yet, to hear from a varied group with different sport backgrounds and hear how you guys have kind of navigated that over the years. So those of you guys online and our guests in the room, we've got a whole bunch of questions that I will ask the panel to start, and we're going to start with introducing everyone. And then after those, I'm not going to ask some questions all night, so if you could get your questions ready, and we'll open it up after I ask a few, and we'll get rolling with your questions. And so those of you online, if you can use the chat box, and we have Sarah behind the computer ready to go, and she will ask questions, your questions for you. Okay, they're all good? All right. So I'm going to start off. Doesn't matter who wants to go first. Maybe John, if you don't mind, I'll start with you and we'll come this way. And I'd just like you to introduce yourself quickly, outlining your current role and how you've been involved in either NCAA sport or university sport yourself as an athlete, coach, or otherwise.
So my name is Germain. I'm the technical director of athletics in Scotia. I've been in that role for almost 10 years now, which is kind of scary actually. Most of my hands-on experience has been in the USport system. So as an athlete many years ago, I was competing in sports, CNS at the time. And then I guess more recently after that, I've been an assistant coach at the last university for 11 years, up until 2015. So my hands-on one-on-one experience is primarily with the sports system, but have been involved indirectly in quite a number of ways, I guess, through the NCAA system, through athletes, coaches, parents, and colleagues that had more direct experience in that system. So I do feel like I have a decent background in both, even though only direct experience in these sports.
I'm Isabelle Germain, and I'm the head coach at King's Edge Hill School. Coach girls hockey, also played at Dundas University for 3 years. So I have a little bit of experience as an athlete and now as a coach and dealing really with high school students trying to make that decision. Started in minor hockey, so I've kind of seen all of those steps, and now most recently involved with the Canada Games team as well with Hockey Nova Scotia. So I do both USport and NCAA with my high school students, depending on the path they want to take, and not always hockey as well. We have some kids who have kind of changed their mind and done rugby or soccer and stuff like that. So super fun.
I'm Julia Burton. I'm from Hamilton Plains, Nova Scotia. I played 4 years at Jacksonville University down the States. I was very fortunate that they kept me on as a graduate assistant, so I finished my master's there. And last year I moved home back to Nova Scotia. I work with Soccer Nova Scotia. My main focus is players under the age of 12. I also am in charge of the Rex Center here, which is our regional Excel program, working closely with Daniel Worthington with Canada Soccer and our 17 national program and our Future 15 national program.
Darren Sutherland, I'm development director at Hockey Nova Scotia. As a sport athlete at CIS at the time, PPI. I'm also the Atlantic regional scope for Hockey Canada's men's national team program. So a large part of my job is dealing with high performance athletes. So I deal with quite a few parents on some of those decisions. NCAA versus, really, I think in hockey it's a little bit differently than other sports because it's not necessarily NCAA versus USport. It's more NCAA versus Canadian Hockey League before we get to USport. So there's a little bit of a difference in the hockey on the male side, especially. So,
Okay, so thank you guys. Yeah, so really neat because we have such varied experience. All of you have coached, played, seen kind of the system. So really neat. So Julia, I'm going to start with you, and especially from your athlete side. So Julia is returning to Canada as a recent NCAA athlete, as she said, and has also coached down there, right? You spent a year coaching down there?
3 years.
3 years, there you go, perfect. So what influenced you to make the decision to go to the NCAA route rather than stay within Canada? And then can you share a little bit about the experience for you while you were down there?
Yeah, I think when I was going through the process, it was a little different than it is now. The process when I grew up, I also was in the Canada Games group of 2009 for soccer. And I was quite young on the team. I was in grade 10, grade 11, and grade 12, and most of them were going the NCAA route. Just because the AUS route was more so, if you played with a certain club, you end up going to a certain university. And so it was almost like you would, at the time, you went through your youth sport, and the player pathway was to a certain university. So a lot of kids that played through this club went to Acadia. A lot of players that went through this club ended up going here. So for me at the time, I was tired of playing the same competition. So having two parents that were both athletes at Dal, they kind of said, listen, try it out. If you don't like it, you can always come home. So that was kind of my mindset going into it. Like I try it for a year. If I'm absolutely miserable, I can come home. Whether it's in December, whether it's in June. I was very lucky that I loved it. So my process also wasn't easy. I initially had committed to 2 other schools before I in Jacksonville. I had verbally committed to a school down in Texas. Coach left and went to UNC Greensboro, and he was taking all of his recruits that way, and I just didn't. It just wasn't the right fit for me. I didn't think it was a bigger school than I was comfortable with, and I said, listen, for me, I know that life after soccer probably won't be going and playing in Europe or whatever that might be. I need to make sure that my studies are a main priority for me, so I decommitted. And then I was committed to Montana. The coach at the time was roommates with my dad at Dal. When they played there, played soccer. He got fired in January. I was supposed to sign my NLI on February 2nd, and I just couldn't. The main reason I was going there was the coach. And so I decommitted again. So I was actually in grade 12, April, when I finally committed to a school, which is extremely, extremely late. Especially now in the process. I mean, I think that's the thing that scares away a lot of kids from here is you hear about, you go to recruiting events as a coach and you have 9th graders come in. And it's something that's mind-blowing, especially for me who had committed April 18th of grade 12. And I was very fortunate that I found the right fit for me. But that's just something that a lot of people don't realize, like the amount of time, and it's just the way the states are with their programs is they do the recruiting a lot earlier, and that's something that people don't put in account. Just make sure you're doing all your tests you need to do, all the stuff behind closed doors, like making sure your immigration paperwork is done, and immunizations are done. Like there's a lot of things that people don't know, and I think that scares people away. But if you find the right institution, I think they're pretty good at guiding you in the direction you need to do. So really, make a long story short, I went because I wanted just to try something new. I wanted new opponents. I wanted to see what the states had to offer. And I was very fortunate. My parents said, listen, try it out. If you hate it, you can always come back and go wherever you want here. So.
And with you committing so late in that final year of grade 12, did school really help you get down, like with things like immigration and everything required to go into the States?
Yeah, it was, I think, I had to be down there for preseason because we start a month early with soccer. So I had to be there July 27th, and I'm pretty sure like they were faxing my stuff to me like July 20th. Like it almost was kind of like they really wanted me because it was like they were pushing so that I would be there on time. And it was a big culture change, but I was, like I said, if you find the right coach, you find the right environment, you're going to be, it doesn't matter if you're in the States or if you're in Canada. It's really just the culture that you're getting into, and if you can buy into it, then you'll be happy.
Thank you. Darren, I'm going to go to you next. So you played over in PEI, played hockey as an athlete. What influenced you to stay and play within Canada and not go to the US to play, which we see, I know nowadays, you see so many hockey players heading down to the US, even in high school.
Yeah, for me, it was, I probably made the decision when I was 16. I went to the Canada Games as an athlete for hockey in '95, which would have been my draft year as well for junior. When I went to the Canada Games, there was actually an agent from Boston who called my parents just shortly after the Canada Games. He had some connections, and there was some talk about potentially looking at Boston University. But that was at the time probably 3 years down the line. So we had, there's a few kind of months where I was actually registered to go to prep school in New Hampshire. That really, to be totally honest with you, I was never really like hockey was what I wanted to do. So school was important, but it wasn't really important for me. I was a typical teenage boy, maybe. Where I think today it's, there are so many opportunities. There's a lot more focus on make sure you're doing well in school. Not that I did bad, but I just at the same time all this was happening. The Doucette started in Halifax in 1994, so the year before all this. I really wanted to, my heart was to try that. I think the ice were really, we always joke about it with my families. I got a letter from the school after I was all through the registration process. One of the requirements was I had to be involved in like a musical at this prep school. And it's kind of like, I don't know if that's going to happen. That was
I'll
like
stay
really,
home instead.
that was kind of the, like, obviously it was like nothing for me. So anyway, I got drafted by Hull, draft, Gatineau now, I guess. That's kind of where as soon as you go to going back. So I think for hockey, it's always that you make that decision. You have to basically make that decision when you're 16, 15, 16, 17 because of the junior just creeps up on earlier, whereas typically in USports for hockey, most on the male side, most of those players don't start to like when they're done junior. And I think now with the NCAA for men's hockey, it's kind of going that way where there's not a lot of true freshmen anymore in men's hockey that are some of the real high end players will, but a lot of the players still try to back them up the United States Hockey League for a couple of years and stuff like that. So it's a little bit different on the female side. A lot of those girls are want this freshman versus the male side because I think they have that spot where they can put the men's players for a couple of years so that they get more of a finished product for a little bit more mature players. So for me it really came down to a couple of months where everything kind of played out. Once I get drafted, this is try. So
Very cool, yeah. So this question I'm going to ask any of you who are comfortable answering, but Izzy, I'm going to kind of start with you if that's okay. Is that when you're working with athletes considering university, what are the major factors you discuss with them when talking about the decision? And kind of also playing off what Darren was saying, the women's hockey pathway being a little different and having NCAA, I know is pretty popular right now. How do you see that as different, and how do you guide those athletes?
Well, I will start by saying the unfortunate part is I do have to start those conversations now with grade 8, grade 9. So 2 years now we've had an athlete in grade 8 on our team, and they come in, they have no idea what they even want to take for their sciences in grade 11, grade 12, and I have to start that conversation of if you do get spoken to, this is how you respond. So early on grade 8 to I'd say grade 10 is just getting them to understand the differences between the two leagues. The playing 5 years versus 4 years. As Darren mentioned, it's their own path. And for some of them, it's a conversation of you've got a lot of work to do to get there. I think in the past, and even maybe when Sarah and I were going into the university programs, the NCAA was seen as the holy grail. That's where the national players were going. That's where you would get all of your sponsored gear, your Nike stuff. You'd get spoiled. You'd have these big stadiums. It was a huge deal. And I think USports has done a really, really good job in the last 5 years. Of course, when we were done playing, but they've done a really good job at pushing the national program and just really hockey in general in Canada has grown so quickly that now you have pilot programs that offer more scholarships for girls, and so getting the parents to understand that part too and understanding the girls. So the first step is getting them to understand how to be approached. So NCAA can't approach you until grade 11. USports can approach you whenever you can. Teaching them to just send the right emails and how to contact universities. You don't want to be too aggressive and send a million emails at once, but introducing yourself is always great. And we get a little bit more serious grade 10, grade 11, grade 12, and really talking about the financial aspect. One of my biggest vices right now is dealing with parents who brag about their kids having scholarships and not explaining what that might be to that family. So obviously financial stuff is private, but when people brag about scholarships, another family then thinks, well, why am I not getting such scholarship? But really a scholarship right now is you're not going to get everything paid for, and the NCAA route is financially based for some of the schools versus a USport where you get an athletic scholarship. Some schools have more money to give. I know one university I just dealt with Nipissing, we found out super last minute that they got free tuition for any student who had an above 90 average. That has nothing to do with their athletic ability, but that's something that the school offers. If that family doesn't give up that information, and that family is now saying, we got a $20,000 scholarship, it's misleading to other families who then go to somewhere like Dal, who doesn't have as much to give, to say, well, why did Julia get $20,000 and my kid's only being offered $3,000, which might be a really good offer for that university. So unfortunately for these kids, they have to understand the money side of it. The other aspect is the coaching side, and that's something that I really push for the female game. The men's game they have so many options. Like Darren said, you're going to go play somewhere before you go to USport, and even after USport, you have multiple options, whether that be pro, 3 different divisions of pro, or Europe, 3 different divisions of pro. For the girls, you have to go for academics first. And I'm dealing with a group of girls right now in grade 12 who don't have any offers and are emailing me or texting me saying, does this team have spots? And my answer is, I'm not going to answer that question because you have to apply to the schools that academically you want to go to, and then we'll talk about if they have spots or not, or if you can try out. So 2 different conversations for 2 different groups of athletes. Between USport and NCAA is really trying to figure out, the academic piece. Are your academics going to be good in Canada? Are you going to have to take supplementary tests or exams? Are your credits going to transfer? For hockey right now, we play 5 years, 4 years. For the NCAA and USport have agreed that if you play 3 years in the States and you have a legitimate reason you want to come back, you can finish your 2 years in Canada. So things like that, and really just getting down to the nitty-gritty of the money side.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure that's a common problem. So if you guys want to speak, John, I'm going to ask you the same question. Is that in athletics, what are the major things that you're hearing from parents and athletes, concerns, questions?
Some very similar things. So some of the main points that I would speak with an athlete first is just trying to get an idea of really what they would need to get into the situation and kind of ask them why. Because the ability to mention that NCAA used to be it's not the be all and all, and I think there's still that notion that everything about the NCAA is better than the
It's shiny.
Yeah,
We hear that a lot. Yeah.
Exactly. So I usually kind of start the conversation with that. Why are you considering the NCAA? Why is it that you're really looking to get out of this? Because the way I kind of, in our sport, the way I kind of look at sports and NCAA, there's obviously all kinds of differences. Some of them are positive for some athletes, some of them that negative for some athletes. So it really depends on the individual situation. And then secondly, also academic side of things needs to be considered athletes Americans, in my opinion anyway, from what I'm seeing. Undoubtedly, obviously, there's huge number of schools in the U.S. that offer incredible education. Obviously, no denying that. There's also quite a number of smaller schools in the U.S. as well, where you're not necessarily either getting the education as you want, so choosing a different program for the sake of athletics, or just the general quality of the program. Potentially where it could be, whereas in Canada, pretty confident in saying that pretty much any person that can go to Canada and education. So that's a big thing that needs to be considered and needs to be thought of a little bit more. And then kind of the third point that I usually bring up initially in these conversations is just the, again, back to the holy grail of the NCAA, and there's also this notion that all of the coaches in the NCAA are really good coaches, and that's not necessarily the case either. So I think it's really important in our sport to have a look for a history of success, and given our sport is purely numbers based, it's really easy to do that. So a coach year over year, sometimes decade over decade, is continuing to produce results, not necessarily athletes just competing at a high level, but those athletes progressing year over year. And I think that's another really important factor that often gets overlooked as well. Athletes, parents, coaches, whoever, looking at that system. So, and I guess the other side of that is the sport system in our sport. There are a lot of very good coaches in Canada. Most of them, many of them at least in our sport, volunteers, but that doesn't mean that they're doing a really good job and equally as good, if not better, in many cases than the counterparts south of the border. So those are kind of the three first items that I usually bring up when chatting about potential options and NCAA athletes or parents.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. And it's a neat perspective too, because when we're looking, hockey and soccer have quite a bit of heavy scholarships, pro leagues after, whereas athletics, like, not necessarily so. So they're going down, scholarships would be there. What is the end goal for a lot of your athletes? Like, is it to come back onto a Canadian Olympic team, maybe a national team? Like, are they looking to go down, make improvements, and come back into Canada, or go down and get their academics?
See, that's why I feel that the academic side of things needs to play a really large part of this decision-making process, because the reality of the situation is, and probably no different than other sports, but in our sport, the reality of you making a living as a track and field athlete is pretty slim, very slim. So that's not to say that it's not an important part of life. We should pursue that goal and those whatever they may be, whether it's to make it on the team or whatever this may be. But I guess my point is that the academic side of things needs to be an important factor, because you need to have something to be able to fall back on for 5 years or even 6 years.
Julie, I'm going to ask you right now, in your sport with soccer and in your role working with, say, some of the Rex athletes now, do you see any advantages or disadvantages that commonly lend you to recommend one over the other, especially with your experience with the NCAA system?
It's hard giving an answer to that because it's so specific per person and kind of the personality. Like they both said it now. it's going NCAA. It's pretty. It's bright. It's cool. And then I think part of that is that probably doesn't help is like you turn on TV on a Saturday and it's universities. And so now working at the university level down the States and a private small school about the size of Acadia, about 6,000 kids, we would offer, tuition was $55,000 a year. We would offer $55,000 a year to a kid, and they would say no money. It would take $800 to go to Alabama. So there's another whole level to it where it's the sports culture that kids they feel like if I go here and then I come home and I'm walking around with my Florida Gator sweater on or my Florida State Seminole sweater on, like I'm a big deal. And I think that's a big part that parents have such a huge impact on helping the kids make that decision. Because I was a homebody, and so the fact that I was going down to Jacksonville,
That's a long way.
It's a long way, and I made that decision because I watched the team train. They played the style of soccer I enjoyed playing. This team likes to move the ball. They're not just going to, like, I mean, it's, you go to Tennessee, you might watch them play big long balls and everyone's over 6 feet tall, and it's just a big, mean style of soccer. Like, it's so specific per person, especially in the sport of soccer, where I picked somewhere that I knew I would go and play. So I played all 4 years, and I never got homesick because I felt like a big fish in a small pond. There's some kids that are like, I want to go to Central Florida and I want to be student number 51,000, and that's not appealing to me. And I think it's the same question you ask kids when you're looking just in Canada. Say you have a kid that says, I just want to stay in Canada. It's a massive question that needs to be asked. Like, am I going to a class and I'm sitting in an auditorium and my teacher's not going to know my name when I graduate? Where some of the classes I was in, like my senior symposium class, there was 12 kids in it. And so like I knew the teacher knew me. I was 22 at the time, and I was done my soccer career, and he would say after class, hey, let's go down to the pub and grab chicken wings and talk about whatever. And so I think that's a big piece that kids just don't take into account is, yes, it's really cool to go play for Florida Gators and be in a stand wearing blue and cheering on our Florida Gators team in the world in the college championships. But at the same time, it's like, remember that it's all fine and dandy on your social media and stuff, but it's life. Like, my sister Rachel, she's 22 now. She went to Jacksonville with me. I was a senior. She was in her first year. She did 3 years down in the States. And after year 3, she said, this isn't for me anymore. The culture's changed. I'm not enjoying it. There's a lot of pieces I'm missing. And so she came back. She's now at UND. She plays there. She just tore her ACL actually playing down in Maine. So that was quite an interesting fact. The first time she's back playing in the States, she tore her ACL. But she's going back to her 6th year next year. And she's the happiest she's ever been. And it's not that it wasn't against being in Jacksonville. It was just the fact that she came home and it was a better fit. It was, there's just different priorities where NCAA is very sports driven, very, very sports driven. Where here, I mean, you have Bell Let's Talk and you have that whole mental health component of sport that isn't seen in the performance side of school states. And not saying it's a bad thing. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's a lot of the American programs are pumping out players for the what's next. And for some players, they might love it. Some players might not love it. It really is based on that player, what their goals are, what they want to get out of it, where they see life going afterwards, especially for our female athletes. University is probably it for the bulk of our players. We'll have a couple that will go and play. I mean, I had a friend who played at Michigan, and now she's playing soccer over in, I don't know, I think now she's in Dubai. But it's like, there's every once in a while you'll get one of those, or you'll get a player that's played with the national team and continues to play. But the vast majority of our athletes, we have to pick somewhere that at the end of their soccer career, they can say, I really enjoyed it. It's specific to players.
Darren, what do you see in your role now, and kind of the common questions that are asked from athletes when looking at the pathway?
Well, I think Izzy might have a little bit more, but I think when I talk to families on the female side, I do think a lot of it's still NCAA. I think that's what the parents want. They're hoping it looks great. It's double that is exactly a lot of it. On the male side, I think just because there is that choice. We probably have more players than ever right now on the male side. We've always had a pretty, good number of female players in the states. On the male side, that's certainly increased over the last couple of years. A few more that have commits as well, which is kind of funny because there used to be a time where I think there was an attraction for hockey from Canada to get players. And I think a lot of that has kind of gone away. I think they'd rather give those scholarships and opportunities to their own, as Americans have kind of, caught on in hockey and hockey's, like, basically caught up now. But we have more players than ever. Rest from Nova Scotia. So, for me, I kind of similar to a few other costs. I think I think, yeah. First of all, I think on the male side, it's a lot of people not only get caught up with rights and all that kind of stuff, but also now on the male side, it's agents, and it's such a huge, I guess they call it advisors because to keep your eligibility. But my advice is always kind of to listen to your son or daughter. They know them better than anybody, and it's their kind of decision. So I think the biggest thing, not having been an NCAA athlete, but being a university athlete here, is that the difference, I guess, in the CHL and the hockey side is you can be traded. And I've been traded in junior hockey, and I think there's a negative connotation to that, but on the same token, if we pick a school, you can't be traded. So if it's not a good fit, you're kind of stuck. I know you can sit out and transfer, and there's some options that way, but you're kind of in it. So there's no real option that you kind of have to make it work no matter what the dynamic is. So I think, I think the NCAA, they have that reputation. See YouTube videos of some of the facilities, and gyms, and student athlete lounges and stuff. But I think the relationship and the fit with the actual coach versus stadiums and the facilities is huge. That really makes your experience. In terms of the actual elite player who thinks that they're going to make a living out of this, there's some opportunities. I'll go back to the male Canada Games team in 2015. We just had 2 players on the World Junior team at Christmas time from Nova Scotia. One plays for Doucette, one plays at Boston University. They're both NHL draft picks, fairly in the top 35 in the NHL draft. So, if they make a career out of it, one's going to do it going one way, and the other's going to do it going the other way. So it's just really an individual fit, I think. How that works for every family, it's different. I think there's positives and negatives in both. So it's just what's really the preference and the fit for your son or daughter.
That's interesting to see, like, 2 athletes who will eventually end up at, if that's their goal, they may both end up in the same place, 2 different pathways. Do you guys all, everyone else on the panel, do you see that as possible in your sports and see those scenarios with the athletes as well? And that as long as they make the right fit for them, everyone can kind of get to the goal that they're shooting for?
It's hard work at the end of the day. I think that's what's maybe lacking from this generation is they want everything given to them, or they expect, or they're entitled to things. But you look at, you've got 2 females from the national program who did it similarly, but differently than what we see now. And you have, a player on the national program who did the USport route, where 99% of them did the NCAA route. Right now you've got, and I think everything is improving in Nova Scotia, but you've got athletes who are making the national program who do have to go to prep school maybe in the States. You've got others who will make it there when they're a little bit older, not having gone to the States. I think two things for, you asked about the advantages and the disadvantages for every sport, not just hockey, is the FISU games. You have to be a Canadian athlete playing in Canadian universities. And I don't know about soccer athletics, but for hockey, the national program has invited those girls over for a camp in August. And that's an opportunity the Americans, the Canadian athletes playing in America don't get. And that's, and Troy can correct me on this, but to me, that's one of the things that you have to understand. You get 5 years in Canada. That's a huge advantage. It's a year, but it's still a year. As Julia mentioned, this is our only path. This is for some. That was my holy grail, was playing university hockey. So for someone to get those 5 years, it was amazing. And to get the education that I got at Dalhousie, it was amazing. To have the opportunity, and I've had friends go to the FISU games, and I've had friends who went to that camp in August. It's an opportunity like no other. You haven't been seen maybe by the national program, but you've been recognized for your hard work and the determination that you've put for your university in Canada, and the national program is giving you a call. They're saying, listen, we might have missed you when you were younger, but you've excelled, you've worked hard, and you've performed for your university. Come on out, let's see how you perform against the rest of them. In the last 2 years now, the USports team has beaten the national team at their own development camp. So I think you're starting to see more advantages at staying here. And the FISU games, again, are not just for hockey. It's for all of these athletes to be able to go and compete at an international event representing your country. So we only had one girl on the U18 team this year. We've only got 2 on the national team. It's an honor to be able to do that.
And I will share, so my sport background is snowboarding. There is no NCAA versus USport pathway, but FISU games is a thing in that sport. And so we sent all our athletes that we could to go. And I had the opportunity to go in 2013, I think it was. And it was a phenomenal experience for every athlete there, for the coaches. And it was really, really cool. And a lot of the coaches that have gone with me have said, compared to the Olympic experience, it's almost an equal experience as far as the size of the event, the quality of the event. So, if you're looking for your athletes, if they're not going to go all the way up a certain pathway, that is a fantastic bone to throw them as a life experience for sure. It's a really neat one. Does anyone else want to comment on kind of the advantages or disadvantages?
I guess
Sure.
in athletics in our sport, a lot of similar things have already been mentioned, but I guess there's a few items within our sport that are pretty distinct advantages, I guess you could say, about the NCAA route. One of them being just the climate and facilities in our sport. It's certain events that can be challenging from a training perspective over year-long basis, especially if you don't necessarily have adequate indoor facilities. So that's a huge advantage. I mean, even the universities in Canada that have amazing indoor facilities, within our sport, there's a number of events that are contested indoors, outdoors, whereas in the NCAA, in addition to your indoor season, you actually have outdoor season as well. So that's a massive advantage that you can experience the whole sport rather than sort of modified version that we do indoors. But on the flip side of that, that can actually be a bit of a double-edged sword as well, because athletes that are in the NCAA have a pretty serious competition schedule that begins in early fall. Actually, even worse in the cross-country runner, but all of the other runners still start competing in November and pretty much go solid through into March, and then immediately outdoors until June. And then you come back to Canada, and a lot of times the Canadian outdoor seasons or our national championships and our national team opportunities tend to suffer. And in a lot of cases, the athletes don't actually compete through our outdoor season because they've just spent the last 8 months straight competing. So it's a huge advantage, but on the flip side can also be a disadvantage. And then I guess the other big advantage that kind of sticks out to me is that although there are some resources and some scholarships that are available in the USport system, which has been grown significantly over the past decade, but compared to the NCAA, it's still two different worlds. It's, particularly on the female side of our sport, it's quite a few opportunities from a scholarship perspective to Title IX. So equal scholarships for the female athletes, at least monetarily. So that's another very distinct advantage, but also similarly to as already said, it really comes down to the fit. But we'll have a few times to just
Interesting. So I'm going to ask the panel one more question, and then so if anyone has some questions in the room or online, I hope you're getting yourself ready. So again, this is to everyone, but I know a couple of you have said you speak up on it. Is do you have any athlete experiences that you'd like to share where you've helped an athlete make a decision? Either way.
I'll go first.
Yeah.
So in hockey, it has been a big push for the States. I don't know if it's just me because I went to a USport and I'm very passionate about the Canadian university system. My team generally tends to be more USport dominant than the other teams in our league. I do have one athlete who committed in grade 10 for Cornell. It was a fit for her and her family. I had to do very little work. She's a great athlete, and it just worked. Perfect timing kind of situation. On the flip side, I had an equally as good player, an incredible academic, and she came to me my first year and said, I want to go to Harvard, Princeton, Yale, all of the Ivy Leagues. And I'm sitting there in my first year thinking, oh my God, what have I got myself into? And after these interviews, I thought, I need to start a legitimate university guidance program, whatever we want to call it. I have to meet with these kids more than once because I need to start giving out serious doses of reality, and I need to maybe help some who do deserve that path. And not to say this athlete didn't deserve that path, but I knew at the time that it was the glamour that was maybe taking over a logistical answer. So I simply said, she was in grade 10 at the time, I simply said, I'll keep those options in your profile. You need to come up with at least 5 Canadian universities that have the program that you're interested in and that you think would be a good fit. And I immediately got an email from the parents that I had crushed her dreams and I had ruined her life essentially. And remember that this is like month 2 of my job. So I panic and I have her into the office and I say, listen, I'm not pushing one or the other. I think we need to do an advantage pros cons list. We need to figure this out. Because if you don't have options for the States, we need to really look at the other side of things. And sure enough, it was, we're going to stick to the NCAA route, but thanks for your help. And a year goes by and still no offers. So we're getting into that awkward, you said, like, that's impressive. I had an athlete commit grade 12 February, and I was like, thank you, dear Lord, because we were getting to, like, the end. So we're in grade 11, and I'm thinking, oh, this is getting tight. So I continue to say, like, here are, I made a list. Here are the universities that have the program that you want. I'm not interested. I'm not interested. And she had some bites from the States. But the bites from the States were going to cost $20,000 to $30,000 US dollars a year. That's including her scholarship. The other thing was she'd have to redshirt a year, so she wouldn't play her first year. Or she'd be second or third goalie, wouldn't be guaranteed playing time. So her conversations really revolved around, what is it that you want? What is it that we're trying to get out of it? Is it the national program? Is it just to go to the States because that's kind of what you've had in your mind? Or do you want to be an impact player and not be in debt for most of your life? So end of grade 11, it became a serious conversation. And we had 3 American universities who had, I want to say, kind of like half-assed offers. And I had a couple Canadian universities who had legitimate offers. But unfortunately, the financial aid side of the American system was a $20,000 scholarship. The Canadian version was a $5,000 scholarship. But it took me to write down everything to say $20,000 still costs you $30,000 US dollars. And a $5,000 scholarship pays for 95% of your tuition. So that's got to be taken into perspective. And she had a coach that she absolutely loved at Dow. And it was the perfect fit. She wanted to go to med school. And she wanted to go to Dow med school. And her goalie coach was at Dow. And I couldn't stop kind of pushing. But I think because I went to Dow, she was probably like, she's crazy. But anyways, we ended up at Christmas time. She had 5 American universities and 3 Canadian universities. And I kind of let go and said, you need to make me a pros and cons list for every single school that you're considering. And I'll make my own list. And we'll compare our lists. And if your reasons are legitimate, we'll continue to push the Americans and I'll put pressure on them. But if your reasons aren't more, aren't more important than the Canadians, then let's see what we can get out of the Canadian universities. And sure enough, when her pros and cons list came out, she could come up with many pros for these states outside of it being NCAA. And her pros list for the Canadian side was lacking the Fuchsia Games, was lacking 5 years, was lacking an opportunity to play at the national program and at August camp if you were selected as part of the USport team. So we visited 4 Canadian universities in December, and she started to realize that the campuses were equally or not nicer than the ones that she was visiting in the States. She started to meet more coaches. She started to get more interest from the Canadian side, and she just committed with one of the best scholarships that I've ever seen given to a Canadian athlete, to a Canadian school, mostly based on academics. But it really worked out for her in the end. It took 2.5 years, though, of pushing, guiding outside of, just outside of that mentality of NCAA is where I have to go. And it wasn't that I was pushing it for selfish reasons, but opening up her mind to say, academically, it's a better fit. Academically, I have a better shot at getting into med school this way. Financially, I'm not going to be in debt. Financially, she's actually going to probably make money out of this. And things like that she really kind of in her mature age of 17 was able to make that final decision.
Thank you for sharing that. That's a great story, and especially, it's one that so many of our coaches are put into that scenario and may not know what to do. So that was a great story of how you kind of guided her through and pros and cons list. Yeah, it can tell a lot of people a lot of things. So that's great. Julie, you had a story as well, didn't you?
Yeah. So I consider myself very, very lucky. My dad played soccer at Dow. My mom played volleyball at Dow. And both still involved in sport. My mom's chef commission this winter. So she's coached Ken Games Ringette. They've both been at Ken Games level. All 3 of us female daughters have played at Ken Games. And my parents, when we all turned about 14, 15, they all said, this is your journey and you're figuring it out. And I think that's something that a lot of parents, even if they know a lot about sport, if they don't know anything about sport, they have to do. It's their journey. It's their life. And you picking and putting on that extra pressure isn't going to help. So when I finally said, okay, I'm going to go visit Jacksonville in April, before I signed, my parents said, we're not going with you. You're going on your own. Figure it out. So they showed me how to book a flight, and we booked a flight. Same thing happened with Rachel. They taught her how to book a flight. When my youngest sister, Emily, went through the process, she said, heck no, I'm not going to NCAA. I'm not doing what my sisters did. I kind of want to create my own path. So she was looking at UNB, and my parents said, great, book a bus ticket. We jumped on a bus at 16 and went up to New Brunswick, and the whole thing was on us. Like, it was our decision, which at the time, I was like, you guys are the worst. Like, I can't make this decision. But realistically, in the end, it was me that was going to be in that spot. It was me that was going to be in Jacksonville. It was my sister that was going to be in that position. And when Rachel decided that NCAA wasn't no longer what she wanted, my parents said, this is on you. You're gonna leave, that's on you. You have to meet with the coaches. You have to tell them you're leaving. You now have to go back into the recruiting pool. And I think that's a really big thing, and we've talked about this, is kids are starting to get things done for them a lot more. And this, I think, has helped all of us in our roles. I mean, I was very fortunate. I was captain with Jacksonville my sophomore year, so my second year. And it wasn't liked by a lot of people, but it was, I think, and my coaches all said it to me, it was, I had to figure out what I wanted to do. My parents were not here. When I got down to Jacksonville, I had to figure out a phone plan. I had to figure out a bank account. It was, and like they were there to help. It's not like they were just like, good luck, see you later, bye. Like they were there to help, but it was like, this is your life and you need to figure these things out. Like you are now 18, you're an adult. It's your journey. And unfortunately, we see a lot of parents that will come in and almost choose where their kids are going to school, or kids will pick schools because they feel like that's where they should go. I met with a girl the other day. She's in grade 11. She's a really good cross-country runner and soccer player. And I said, what are you thinking? She goes, well, both my parents want me to go to Dal. And it's like, well, you're probably going to go to Dal then. Because, and she's like, but I don't want to. I think I want to go to Toronto. But in the end, she'll probably end up going to Dal.
Because of that pressure.
Because she feels like that's where they want her to go. It's going to, right. And I think, really, and I mean, I can't say much because I'm not a parent. I'm 25 years old, but the biggest advice I would give throughout this journey is letting the kids take the steering wheel. Because if they go down and they're miserable, I mean, if I was miserable down in Jacksonville, I was a 6-hour flight away. Like that's something that I have to do, and that was an investment that I have to do, and it's not my parents doing it, it was me doing it. So I think really my best experience was that. It was how my parents kind of said, you three do it, and all three of us did it completely our own ways, where I went NCAA, and I was a diehard soccer player. I could be on the soccer field for hours. 20 hours a week, that's no problem. NCAA rules, I'll be on the field for 100 hours. Where Rachel was like, I like it, I like beach. And like, there's all these different pieces that she picked it, and then Emily was like, nope, I want to go to UNB. UNB sent her like a little hot chocolate during high school exams and was like, here's, keep good luck in exams. And she was like, I'm in, I want to UNB. Like it's, and I think because like our parents let us guide the direction, that's really, I mean, it's the, I think, and that's what I say with my rec kids, like, where do you want to go? And it's a conversation I have with kids alone, because if they come in and say, I want to go here, and then the parents are like, yeah, she said she wants to go to California. Well, it's like,
It's more rewarding.
Right.
Like I think, you know, Maddie has parents who were very, very supportive through the process, and she was so conflicted. And when she said, you know, I don't know about Toronto, she didn't give me a legitimate reason why. And when she finally signed, she was so proud of herself because it was something that she had done. She felt wanted. She felt like it was the best fit for her. She knows that she's going to be well treated, and you know, her parents kind of pushed her in the right direction and supported her in that decision. But I think it's more rewarding if you make your own decision. I had to work my butt off to get on the Dell team. And I think if we expect too much, it's when they show up at university and they're not the captain in their second year, they're not the captain ever, and they're just on the bench the whole time.
Yeah.
You have to build character real quick. And, you know, I meet with the athletes once a month about university, and I had a kid just email me and say, you led me to believe I could play university. And I said, we believe in you. I'm your coach. I believe in you, but you have to do the work. I'm going to support you, and I'm going to help guide you into wherever you want to go. I'll make the phone calls. I'll help you send an email, but you have to get there. And when you get there, it's going to feel super awesome.
Darren, what do you see with especially a lot of the hockey players starting very young?
Yeah, I agree. It's similar to what Darren said. I know, like, I'm from a family of 4 brothers who all played. I played at PI. My brother Jeff played at Dow. I had twin brothers, Robert and Ryan, played at Katie at the same time. So all 4 of us played university hockey here. And it's funny because Troy would know this, because Troy had a hand in recruiting Katie at the time. But you know, like, I know personally for myself, the first year I went to Hull, think at that time the long distance, like the $20 a month plans were just starting, maybe, but I distinctly remember calling my mom at work in the middle of the day, like home, so basically told her, parents, hang up, go home, or get used to it, like you're 15 hours away in Ottawa. Yeah. And then I know my brother Robbie, kind of similar to something Julie said, but my brother Robbie was playing in Cape Breton. He was a pretty high draft pick. And his second year, he wasn't happy, some stuff at school, and he didn't feel like he was doing as well in school as he wanted, so he asked to be traded. They told him basically that they'll never trade him, and if he goes home, he's done. Major junior hockey, and he left. He went home and played junior, and those are decisions that, as a 16-year-old person, and he did that himself. My mom and dad said, "Listen, you're going to do this. You're going to go talk to him yourself." And you're going to live with the decision. And he did. He ended up getting traded to Halifax, and captain of the Doucette last year, junior. But I think the whole part of sport is that very few people make a living out of it, but some of the experiences kind of shape yourself. And funny story. Robbie and Brian are twin brothers. My younger brothers were twins. Brian, ironically, is probably the best player of all of us, I would say. Really, really naturally gifted. But he really was, really take it or leave it. He was kind of, and I know it broke my dad's heart, especially. Not that my dad was the total opposite of anyone, but you could just tell it's a big deal. We're committed to this. And it's funny because Robbie was a captain of the Doucette when he was 20 years old. Brian was his twin, won Royal Bank National Championship in Junior A the same year. But Brian, the joke was, I think he was 4 teams in the Quebec League owned his rights, and he never played one game. But everybody kept trying to get him to convince him to go. He never would. But they both went to Acadia, and they're going to Acadia. Brian went to play pro hockey, so he actually went a little at the end further than Robbie, just because by that time he was like, I got my degree, and I was going to go play for a year or two, and kind of have some fun. So, the path is so different for everyone. But I think the son or daughter really has to be. I think you can get into a situation whether it's university or junior hockey, and you can fake it for the first month and you arrive on campus or you arrive in the city, but once all that kind of initial novelty was worn off, you have to be happy in your situation. So it's just important to be a parent and provide guidance. Everybody that wants what's best for their kids, but make sure they're happy.
So Sarah, I'm going to open it up. Is there anyone, do either of you have questions, or is there anyone online that has questions for our panel? Yeah.
We do have one online. What does the panel foresee as the biggest challenges USport faces with becoming as recognizable of a brand as the NCAA? It's a great question.
Just because I've spent so much time down there, I think it's going to be really hard. Because with NCAA, there comes a lot of money. And I think, I worked in the club setting in the States. American sports is a big business. Sure. It's a massive business. And so I think we'll just forever compete with that because we've put so much effort and stuff into our academic side. I just think it's going to be so difficult to compete. It's different because you see, if you're looking at basketball. Basketball in the States brings in so much money, almost more money than some professional teams. It's such a big revenue sport. I think, and everyone, you drive anywhere in the States and they've got their flags out with their teams they support, and it's such a business. And it doesn't matter where you are. You can be in Florida and someone might have a Duke flag in their yard. It's a business and it's a culture. And I think that's something that's forever going to be an issue for USport just because, I mean, like my parents still talk about the rivalries they had with SMU, but that was so much more smaller than when you have Florida State and Florida playing in Atlanta, Georgia, because the stadium can hold 50,000 people, and both teams have to drive 6 hours to get to the game. Like, it's such a business in the States that I don't know if you'll ever see Canadian youth sport get there, just because I don't think, we have, and it's not something bad against Canadian sport. I just think that the business side drives universities. Gatorade is just pumping in money into coordinators. You've got Nike pumping in money, and people have commercials based off university teams. Like they're treated like professional athletes, and they are seen as professional athletes. And like, especially for young kids, if they're on social media and they look on Instagram, you're looking at the quarterback from Clemson who just won, and he's got like 1 million followers, and he's 18 years old. Like it's a business. And that's just something that I don't know if we'll ever get there. I mean, we have so many other things that Canadians are passionate about that I think that university sport, yes, they're passionate fans, but I don't. That's the biggest difference.
Do you see that it's a culture difference up here? Like we don't fill the stands at most university games.
100%.
I think a big problem too is you talked about the business side. The business side was created by ESPN. Yeah, of course, the states put more money in their athletics than we do academics, but the basketball players were just fighting a couple years ago about getting money from those TV deals. They're $1 billion TV deals. We travel to the states almost every other weekend, and every time I turn on the TV in my hotel room, I can find basketball, football, hockey. It doesn't matter what sport. Sports that I've never even seen on TV in Canada are primetime American channels. And we have TSN 1 through 5 now, but 1 through 5 is showing the same thing. SportsCenter all day, or now it's the Australian Open all day. You've got ESPN, NCAA 1, 2, 3. Okay, but it's a basketball game, a different basketball game, a women's game, whatever. We have no exposure. And I say this coming from a broadcasting background too. I used to work in broadcasting with the AUS, and it's I'm not going to say it's getting there. It's better than it was. But my schedule was football, all fall, only 1 day a week, obviously. And then once I got into the winter season, it was 80% male games with hundreds of views to a female game that I'd have half the amount of people watching. So, and you only could see it on Eastlink, and you could only see it on a certain, it was very limited to who could watch it and when you could watch it. But when I go down to the States, I have zero problem watching. I would love to watch more university hockey. And we have online streams. I can't turn on my TV and see any female highlights, not just hockey. I can't find anything on track and field. I can't find anything on soccer unless it's a really important national game. And we just had the U18s, they had maybe a 10-second blurb on it, I think, on SportsCenter. No highlights. The All-Star game might get some highlight reel on Sportsnet, but you will not see female highlights consistently on TV. And that goes to youth sport and professional. And until we get the TSNs, the Sportsnets, the Rogers, the Bells to invest money that they might not see a big return on ever, we won't get the business side of the NCAA.
I guess I would echo what both of you have said, and I think sort of probably, at least not in my lifetime, when the sport will be seen from elements of the NCAA, and all of those factors kind of combined, I kind of weighed that whole thing into sort of the American community. This kid coming up through high school, and they see the pathway, they see the end goal of the scholarship to this university, or college, or whatever the case may be. I think just what people envision, what people see as the pathway to becoming a university athlete is significantly more clear in the U.S. than it is in Canada. So I think that plays a role in the whole cultural aspect of something we talk about. It's not that I've been directly involved in that, but I've been around high quite an exciting environment atmosphere for sure. So I think USport has always been my involvement, and our sport has come along with the past 10, 15 years that we've run performances that USports are quite impressive. So it's come along ways, but still in a different world than
How do we, like in any sport, male or female, like how do you educate parents and athletes to what you guys are saying? Like, um, Alabama football is not Holy Cross hockey. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I think what parents and kids see is they see Alabama football and they think that Holy Cross hockey is the same thing. When I've coached against Holy Cross and there's 45 people in the building. Do you know what I mean? Like, so it's not 60,000 people, and I think definitely in women's hockey, I think like you mentioned, the one USport athlete that plays on the national team just happened to be the MVP of the Olympics. You know what I mean? So there's someone who doesn't have the option to go to some of these NCAA schools, or possibly did, but chose the Canadian ranks. I think what we got to do as coaches or administrators is just do a better job of educating people that not all programs are the Alabamas or the Florida Gators, and that sometimes a Canadian university can actually be a better option. So just if you have any ideas on how that can be done, I know it's a tough one, but
I kind of think similar to like you're saying, like when I think of NCAA sports, or I think of Friday Night Lights, and I seriously, like, I think of the TV show or the movie, and it's high school, and I think just athletics in general. And U.S. when I talk to people at high school or any kind of sports, it seems like so much of it's related to the school system. And, come up through high school or prep school where hockey is big, and then into the university or where in Canada, and it's changed a little bit because there's more players going. There's more sports schools in Canada now and stuff like that. But traditionally, it's been that club team. They come up, they play for their midget team or whatever it was, and then so it's not really rooted in a school and that whole environment, and fan base, and all that kind of thing. So I think it's almost like that allure of going there. But I just, it's funny because when you would never, I can never pit, in hockey, Canada is genuine. Always, and I think other countries have caught up and they're catching up with hockey, but we've always been generally looked at as the top country for hockey in the world. But yet, we have players that look to go to the U.S. for whatever reason. You would never picture an American leaving the U.S. to play football in Canada unless they are absolutely at zero option. So it's kind of funny that it's the sport of hockey that you look to go that way. And I think, I just, we don't, I think what Troy just said, like, I think we need to do a better job with our partnerships with different groups or a pathway to the AUS. I am going to alumni PBI here in about a month. Retire. Joel Ward's sweater played 10 years in the NHL after he left PBI. So those are there's players on the male side, but the AUS is basically pro hockey right now on the men's side. It's when I played, the player who left the American Hockey League sat out here. We're basically there's zero difference between the top two lines in the AUS and the bottom two lines in the AHL. Just kind of opportunity and some of those things. So quality, but I think in Canada, on the men's side, it's kind of it's an afterthought because it's major junior, and it's okay. Those guys didn't make it, so they're playing university now. Whereas the U.S., those players are even potentially especially in football, basketball, in hockey, some of them go to NHL or Major League Baseball, whatever it is. So, I think it's just for us. Canadians have always been, they're such nice people, but we don't give ourselves enough credit for some of the things that we do, and some of the programs we have. Sometimes we just don't do a better job. Yeah, talking, yeah,
We're
exactly.
not great at that, yeah.
I think for me, Troy, is we get to travel a lot, and I take advantage of that. It really sucks to be on a bus we're on our way to Buffalo, and we're gonna be on a bus for 2 full days, and we'll try to stop somewhere and find somewhere that we can kind of get off and explore. So in the past, we've done Maine, we've done St. Lawrence, we've done Toronto, Queens, Carleton, Ottawa, Concordia. I've done pretty much all of the AUS schools. And for me, it's fact checking the girls because you're right. They watch TV and they see those big games. They want to go to there. But we went to Merrimack, and there was 0 atmosphere. And we go to Maine, and you could film every Stephen King movie there. It's in the middle of nowhere, and it's deserted really up until you get to the university. And you go to UNH, the facilities are beautiful, but you're in the middle of nowhere. You go to the University of Toronto, you don't have the most beautiful arena, but you're downtown Toronto, you have atmosphere, you have school pride. At Dal, we didn't have too much, but then you go next door to St. Mary's and the place is packed. And it wasn't a big, and Brianna might be the best example for this. She had options to go down to the States. She chose to stay at home. She captained that team for 4 years. She won 3 AUS banners, went to all the bronze. They won bronze 1 year at the USport championships, and she had 2 opportunities to go to FISU games and to the national camp. And that was, she had looked at her options and didn't really see a difference between staying at home at St. Mary's and the school support she had there and what she would have gotten in the States. And some schools, it's beautiful. Deanna was going to Cornell. She's ecstatic. She went to a game, loved it. So sometimes you do get that experience and you get those chills of, this is super awesome. But I think you just have to explore, and I really try to help the girls. We had a very exhausting trip in Ontario, but we visited 4 universities. And that was the goal, was maybe you like Carleton and you hate Ottawa, or vice versa. But they're right next door to each other, and they're super, super different. Queens was, I even wanted to sign up. I was looking at the master's programs. So for me, it's fact-checking people who might just read online and have fantasies, and giving them the opportunity to see it for themselves.
I think it's a good point too, in that the American universities are highlighted and colleges are highlighted on TV so well, so the athletes see that and they may not see or understand what Canada has to offer as well. So,
well, and usually they only film the big games, especially for games like hockey. Like you'd be sitting at a restaurant and they'll have a hockey game on, and it looks packed, and like, dang,
but
that's unreal. But it usually with sports like that, they're big rival games where in football and basketball, like, that's the backbone of the States. I mean, you watch the NFL and they're now in playoffs and they're going through their offensive line and they're talking about the universities. Like it's just their culture. It's their culture. It's the football culture. It's the basketball culture. I mean, it's the same with basketball. They're talking about their starting lineup and they're like so and so from this school.
Yeah, I love hearing that.
Yeah, and those are the sports that it's the culture. And I think and we started to say that to kids through the soccer program, and I don't know if you can educate your parents, but that needs to be a question you ask when you're talking to universities. And, hey, school in like Stetson in DeLand, Florida, there's nothing there. There's a Pizza Hut and a school. How many kids you get out, or how many people you get at your games? You get over 1,000 people at a girls' soccer game. It's like, I'm coming. I'm signing up. But then you go to a Sunday game and there's 3 parents there, and it's like, it's finding that right fit. I mean, part of me when I went to Jacksonville, how many people come watch your games? Like, I love big atmosphere. I think it's awesome. Some people are like, nope, I don't want anyone at my games. And that's just a big piece that needs to be asked. I don't know if you can educate, but it's definitely in your decision making. I mean, if you're going to Florida and all your games leading up to season, you have no fans because you're playing these random teams, and then all of a sudden you're getting into your conference and you're playing Florida State, you're playing Auburn, those games are packed. Like that's also the Southern culture of it. But I think that's just part of, I don't know if you can educate your parents on making those decisions, but ask those questions when you're talking to schools. And I mean, it's very different from the boys' game to the women's game because even my husband playing baseball, but any time he gets called up into the big leagues, they highlight his university. It's like it's part of that male culture.
Yeah.
It's just the male culture of sport in the States where you don't see it as much on the women's side. You're starting to, but you're not seeing it as much.
That relates well with what Darren said. When you play university sport as a male athlete, it's considered failed or you're just done. And this is the end point. You just get your degree now to start your life. Where the AUS is the most fun hockey you can watch, really. Like and boys and girls, but the boys are really underrated for what they do, and they're consistently the top teams at the USport championships. And you have an opportunity to pay what, $5 to watch a game. Like just go out and watch.
And I think that's changing. I know my cousin is the head coach in one of those programs in the U.S. He basically, when he recruits players, he's looking for players that have been about 3 years because they're going to play or hockey somewhere in Europe or wherever. You know, a lot of them will come in with some credits from junior, so they already have a year knocked off of school. Some of them will stick around and do some stuff in the summer, but the really good players want to get in and out, so they'll go play for a couple of years in Europe or wherever. So, we don't really talk about it a lot. So, on either side, male or female, so
There's some opportunity there for sure, yes, and education.
for sure.
Yeah, and education, I think, as well. Are there any other questions online?
No.
Okay. I'm going to thank you guys. We won't take up your whole evening. So thank you guys online. If you have any other questions, fire them away. We'll be here for another couple of minutes. If not, thank you guys for joining online. Thank you guys for coming in person. I always will appreciate everyone who attends in person now, even more so than I ever did. So thank you guys. Do you want to stop the recording there, Sarah? Yeah. Really good.